Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Well, we're going to look at inflation today. We're going to look at the definition of inflation, which the vast majority of people don't really know what inflation is. I guess Lenin was right. The fastest way to destroy the bourgeoisie is to inflate away their currency, and that 99% or even more of the people didn't even realize it was happening. And I'm sorry to say, I'm not being political or anything. I'm just looking at the facts. I think we're going down that road, not just here in the UK, but in the United States. And I kind of missed some comments from President Trump about a week ago. And I think it's really serious. And I can understand very wealthy, smart investors who have a huge portfolio of bonds, why they would want to get out of it. Fixed income securities. And we're going to talk about that today, and why I don't think there's enough, anyone has enough gold or silver to protect themselves from what's coming. Yes, I'm sorry to say, we're going down the way of Weimar Germany. Yes, unfortunately, President Trump is in denial. He doesn't really know what inflation is. I would debate him if he wants on what inflation is, and he wouldn't know inflation if it hit him in the face. I don't want to be rude, but that's what we're going to look at today. And I think it's more important than ever to have some physical gold and silver, even if you don't buy 10, 20, 30%, just a little bit to protect your savings, because the storm that's coming is not going to be pretty. Yeah, so if you're still on the fence, or if you continue to stack, make sure you check out the affiliates for this channel. We've got Miles Franklin in the US. It's easy to get in touch with them. You just email info@milesfranklin.com and tell them that Mario or Maneco 64 sent you there. And here in the UK, it's Gold Investments. All the details are below in the description. You can call them as well and talk to them. Yeah, they're really great at what they do, Gold Investments. They were probably the only bullion dealer that was delivering during lockdown. Yes, they would drive to people's houses to deliver their coins and bars. So anyway, what I want to start with today, because knowing the definition of something is really important. And if you don't know the definition, if you've been brainwashed into believing the establishment definition, then there's no hope for you to protect your savings. That's the way I see it. And I've been warning about this, and sometimes it sounds like a broken record for, well, just over 10 years now on this channel. And I've always referred to my old Merriam-Webster pocketbook dictionary from the, well, early mid-70s. And why early mid-70s? Well, because back then they still had the classical, truthful definition of inflation. And I'll read it for you. So that's on page 365, inflation. An abnormal increase in the volume of money and credit, resulting in a substantial and continuing rise in the general price level. So that's the key word, an abnormal increase in the volume of money and credit. That's what inflation is. The measure that we get from all governments that they call inflation, CPI, is not really inflation. It's the general price level. And you could have real inflation, the abnormal increase in the supply of money and credit. And you could have some prices of things that might go down, like President Trump keeps talking about gasoline or gas going down. Yes, that might be going down, but it doesn't mean that there's no inflation. Yeah, that's another fallacy of the 1970s. And of course, it was the mainstream economic, academic, and Wall Street world that came up with it, because they wanted to change the definition from the 70s because they needed to keep the fiat dollar going. And they blamed everything on the oil crisis of the 70s, but it was anything but that to blame for inflation. It was the fact that government was spending and borrowing too much, and also President Nixon detached the dollar from the gold anchor, right? So they could increase the supply of money and credit willy-nilly out of thin air. And I'm going to do a really simple experiment for you, because back in the day, ancient Rome, for example, the way they used to inflate the money supply was to take a denarius and take away the silver content and put base metals in it. So they could, instead of having 1 denarius, they could now have maybe 1.5, and they kept doing that, and they increased the money supply massively, but people realized that the coins were not silver anymore. So people demanded more for their services and produce and products and so on. That's how they used to inflate it. Nowadays, it's done digitally and through the deposits, right? Through the coins, not so much, because we don't use coins as much anymore, unfortunately. So here's the experiment. I have here a 1964 quarter. There you go, 1964. You can see that was the last year that quarters had 90% silver, dimes as well, and half dollars. They still had 40% up until 1970, but they basically took away the silver coinage of the United States. But today, if you look at this silver quarter, the melt value of this quarter is 10 to 12 fiat dollars, the dollars that we use today. So you can easily do that. Silver value of a 1964 quarter, it's around 10 to 12 dollars. So that's what it's worth. But here I have some post 64 quarters. They're made of base metals, copper and nickel. 4 of them. They should be worth 4 times this, right? But they're not. You get very little for $1 now. So the thing is, they've gone from 1 quarter to 4. So they've increased the money supply 4 times, but it's become worthless. That's what inflation is. And that's why prices have to rise. So anything that cost a quarter, let's say back in 1964, will probably cost at least 10, 12, maybe even more fiat dollars. So that's what the consequence of inflation is. So you increase it. It's the law of supply and demand. And I think President Trump, I think what he's thinking here is that through his tariff policy, all his economic policy, he's going to be able to increase the production of things in the United States, and that it will match the increase in the money supply, and that will limit, let's say, inflation, and it will limit higher prices. But by the time that happens, I think the currency is going to be gone, because we're going to look here at some other definitions or some sayings. One that I like a lot, and I've referred to it many times, is from the Raven of Zurich, Felix Sommeray. And he says, the state alone is responsible for inflation. Inflation without government, or indeed against government, is impossible. So there you go. It's a tax. It's a silent tax. And how does it work? Well, whenever the government borrows more than it takes in and has a deficit, a budget deficit, or when the country buys more than what it sells, right? When it has a trade deficit, and when the debt is going up, the government public debt is going up like it's now, that's inflation. And because it means the country is living beyond its means, not just domestically through the government, but also internationally through trade. And I saw something on Instagram the other day. Did you know the last president to run 4 budget surpluses in his administration was Calvin Coolidge in the early 1920s? So this is not just a Trump problem. It's a problem that the United States has had for 100 years. The United States government has been living beyond its means, and I've got a chart here to prove it to you. This is the budget deficit. It went down under the Obama administration, but honestly, and I'm not defending Obama, I'm just giving you the numbers. But ever since 2016, it's been like this. It really went down sharply. Huge deficit under Trump's watch in 2020. Yes, he was president in 2020. The budget deficit was minus 14.7 or 14.7% deficit to GDP. The next year, under the new president, was 12.1, and it's still more than 6%, the budget deficit. So it means Uncle Sam is living beyond his means, and that is inflation. And I'm going to give you another chart. Well, and this one is very clear. It's the M2, which is the money supply, which is the true definition, the increase in the supply of money and credit. So here we go, M2. Yes, it came off from 22 to 23, 24, and now it's picking up again. It's at all-time highs. I'll give you the exact number. It's 22 point, almost $3 trillion. And I see that President Trump said something about Biden, saying that President Trump left him the inflation problem, and that is bogus. That's what Trump said. But if you really look at the true definition of inflation, which is the uncontrolled almost, very pronounced increase in the supply of money and credit. If you look at M2 from February 2020, it was just under 15.5 trillion. And then by January 2021, it was at 19.4 trillion. So huge increase there in M2 under the Trump administration. So it wasn't surprising that we got rising prices a year or two after this. And this time the QE didn't work in terms of keeping CPI down, because they were actually giving money to the public to spend. It wasn't just for the financial sector to goose up financial assets. And that's why you had the rising prices, what they call inflation. But the real inflation, of course, was really pronounced from February 2020. Yeah, all the way to April 2022, there was inflation. So it was a mixture of both President Trump and President Biden. President Biden kept the inflation going. And I've listened to Thomas Massey, who Donald Trump has disowned. And he said that this big, beautiful bill that went through this year, that's going to make sure that the budget deficit stays elevated, like at 5-6%. And a 5 and 6% or even 7% budget deficit, is more akin to budget deficits during a recession, what Keynesians use. They goose up government spending to kickstart the economy. All it does is give an artificial sugar boost to this economy and increases the debt. Is it any wonder we're almost at 40 trillion in the U.S. national debt? So yeah, I was saying I hadn't seen what President Trump said. So it's here. It's I've got it on Yahoo Finance. It says Trump says inflation is essentially gone. How can it be gone when the money supply is going up like that? When the Fed is going to start doing QE again, right? And he says, but warns against deflation. You got to be careful. Well, what's deflation? Well, people are going to say, oh, it's prices going down. No, it's the money supply going down. And if I show you the money supply again here from the Fred, I mean, the only time it's really gone down in the last, let's say, 60 plus years has been from April 2022 to December 2023. That we had deflation there. The money supply actually went down. And and despite that, the CPI is still positive. It's still running at 2-3%, probably even more if you calculate it like John Williams from Shadow Stats does. President Biden was such a, it was a joke of presidency. I don't think he was in charge, of course. So anyone that comes looks a lot better, and especially someone like Donald Trump. But the other thing I saw that concerns me, and especially coming from the President of the United States, is the other day he said tariffs had brought in $18 trillion. But if you look at the amount of goods and services combined that the U.S. imported in 2024, it was $4.11 trillion. So basically, President Trump is saying that they brought in 18 trillion. How is that possible? Unless you have on average 450% tariffs, and the United States doesn't have that. So yeah, I'd be really concerned. And I'm not surprised the smart money, the very wealthy, are getting out of Dodge. What does that mean? Well, they're getting out of fixed income bonds because I think we're headed for hyperinflation now, and especially with this new Fed chairman being chosen and coming in May. I think he'll be totally political. Not that I think the Fed does a good job with inflation. Of course it doesn't, but it's going to make things even worse. And I think that's why the bond market, especially, let's say the 30-year yield, is giving some really serious signals that things are not great. And I think it's going to continue. I think investors are going to bail out of long-term government bonds. On the short term, of course, the Fed can always print and buy more, but that's just going to make the dollar worth less and less. But in a way, there's no other solution, right? Because the debt is so gargantuan that the system requires the inflation to happen, because inflation is just bringing in more debt to keep the old debt going. Because if you don't, you get a deflationary collapse. And even if you get that, though, it's great to have gold and silver, because if you have a deflationary collapse, you have loads of institutions, individuals, corporations going bust. And the only thing that really survives is hard money outside the system. It happened during the Great Depression. Believe me, the mining stocks did... home stake mining was up 500% in the 30s. Of course, Americans were asked to hand in their gold, and a lot of them did. But that's the way I see things. And with that, I'm going to wish you all a very good day. Take care. Bye.